Finish it. The command sliced through the break room silence. I stared at the murky liquid in the cup, my insides twisting as 20 coworkers pretended to be fascinated by their phones or the ceiling tiles. I said, "Finish it, Astrid." Warren leaned against the counter, arms crossed over his expensive navy suit. The company's VP of development enjoyed an audience for his power displays. The first sip had been vile, lukewarm coffee mixed with his half-consumed protein shake. Chunky remnants clung to the sides of the paper cup. Everyone's waiting, or should I make that termination official right now? I met his gaze and tilted the cup back, forcing the gritty mixture down my throat. It tasted like humiliation, with notes of rancid vanilla. My eyes watered, but I refused to break eye contact. "There, happy now?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. Warren's lips curled into a satisfied smirk. "See? Was that so hard? Maybe next time you'll remember who runs this department before questioning my decisions in front of the entire team." All because I'd pointed out flaws in his rushed production timeline during the morning meeting. 3 years of stellar performance, countless weekends sacrificed, and one professional disagreement had led to this, drinking from his cup to learn my place. "Everyone back to work," he announced, plucking the empty cup from my trembling fingers. "Astrid and I will discuss her future tomorrow morning." The room emptied quickly. Nobody looked at me. Nobody said a word. I walked back to my desk with burning cheeks, gathering my personal items into my bag. The photo of my sister and me at graduation, the small plant I'd somehow kept alive, the notebook filled with ideas Warren had dismissed, then mysteriously implemented months later. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meeting confirmed. 2 p.m. Wyndham Room. Perfect timing. I slipped out of the building at lunch, stopping at a small cafe where the barista recognized me. "The usual? Astrid?" "Yes, please. And maybe something to settle my stomach." "Rough day?" she asked, sliding a ginger tea alongside my latte. I managed a small smile. Just transitioning. 2 hours later, I sat in the plush leather chair of the Wyndham conference room. I'd changed in a hotel bathroom. Black pencil skirt, crisp white blouse, hair pulled back in a sleek bun, glasses perched on my nose instead of contacts. The investment team filtered in, nodding respectfully. "Dr. Wells, thank you for coming on short notice," said Tessa, the lead investor. "My pleasure," I replied, arranging my materials precisely on the table. The door opened again and Warren strode in, confidence emanating from every pore, until his eyes landed on me. His stride faltered. Confusion, then recognition, then unmistakable fear flashed across his face. "What is she doing here?" he managed, looking around as if expecting someone to remove me. Tessa raised an eyebrow. "Dr. Astrid Wells is the industry consultant we hired to evaluate your biomedical division before we finalize our investment. She comes highly recommended." Warren's mouth opened and closed like a fish deprived of water. "There must be some mistake. She's a junior analyst in my department." "Actually," I said, opening my laptop with steady hands, "I've been conducting an embedded evaluation of operational practices for the past 3 months at the board's request. Standard procedure before a $90 million investment." The color drained from Warren's face. "Please, everyone take your seats," Tessa continued. "Dr. Wells has prepared a comprehensive analysis. Before we continue further, thank you for tuning into this wild corporate tale. If you're enjoying this story of workplace revenge, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama that'll make your worst office days seem tame. Drop a comment telling me about the worst boss you've ever had. I guarantee Warren might still take the crown. Now, let's get back to that conference room where our VP is looking like he's seen a ghost. My name is Astrid Wells. I hold a PhD in biochemical engineering with a specialization in therapeutic protein development. Before joining Helios Therapeutics as a junior analyst, I'd spent 8 years consulting for pharmaceutical companies on their development protocols. The board had approached me 6 months earlier with concerns about their star VP. Warren had delivered impressive results, but complaints about his methods were piling up. 3 harassment claims had been quietly settled. 5 senior scientists had resigned in the past year. And most concerning, quality control reports showed concerning inconsistencies. "We need someone on the inside," the board chair had explained. "Someone who can evaluate without raising alarms." I'd agreed to take a position well below my qualifications, observing from within while documenting everything I witnessed. Now Warren sat across from me, sweat beading along his hairline despite the room's chill. I took a slow sip of water, savoring the moment. Let's begin with the development timeline for Pertines R, I said, pulling up my first slide. Warren has reported consistent progress, but my analysis shows significant issues with current stability testing. For the next 20 minutes, I methodically walked through the data. The investors leaned forward, expressions growing increasingly concerned. I was careful to stick to facts, presenting everything with clinical precision. These results from last week's batch clearly indicate the formulation is not shelf-stable beyond 60 days, contrary to what's been reported to this committee. Warren interrupted, his voice strained. These are complex processes, with variables that junior staff wouldn't understand. I smiled thinly. I designed the industry standard protocol for these exact testing parameters, published in the Journal of Biomolecular Stability 3 years ago. Would you like me to explain the methodology in more detail? His face reddened. The room felt charged with tension. Tessa cleared her throat. Warren, perhaps you could address the discrepancy between these test results and your reports? He shuffled papers, buying time. There's context missing. Alternative testing showed more promising results. Interesting, I said. I've reviewed all lab reports from the past 6 months. No alternative testing was logged. Unless it happened off books, the implication hung in the air. Unlogged testing was a serious compliance violation. Warren's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then back up with renewed confidence. I think we should pause this meeting. Miss Wells has created a hostile work environment. In fact, she was being disciplined this morning for insubordination. Disciplined? Tessa asked. The moment had arrived. I reached into my bag and placed a small vial on the table. This morning, Warren forced me to drink from his used cup in front of the entire break room as punishment for questioning his timeline during a team meeting. Shocked murmurs rippled through the room. Ridiculous, Warren scoffed. A complete fabrication. I touched my tablet screen and turned it toward the investors. 7 employees have already provided written statements confirming the incident. I've also submitted a sample of the substance for independent analysis. Warren's laugh sounded hollow. It was a joke. Team building. Astrid understood that. Did I? I asked quietly. When you said, drink this, and maybe I'll reconsider your termination, was that the punchline? The room grew unbearably silent. This isn't just about one humiliating incident, I continued, maintaining my professional tone while letting just enough emotion show. It's about a pattern of behavior that's infected the company culture. I displayed a chart showing staff turnover under Warren's leadership compared to industry standards. The difference was staggering. Talent retention in biomedical research is critical for product development. Helios has lost 18 key scientists in 3 years. Exit interviews indicate a toxic work environment as the primary reason. One of the investors, a gray-haired man I recognized as Julian, spoke up. Warren, these accusations are serious. What do you have to say? Warren's entire demeanor changed. His back straightened, and a confident smile replaced his panicked expression. What I have to say is that Dr. Wells has orchestrated an impressive character assassination, but there's something she doesn't know. He pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. I just received confirmation from Human Resources that Astrid Wells submitted her resignation this morning, effective immediately. My blood froze. How had he known? I'd drafted my resignation, but hadn't submitted it yet. Warren continued, voice smooth as silk. Perhaps Dr. Wells can explain why she's sabotaging our company right after quitting? Or maybe she'd like to disclose her connection to our competitor, Vitaris Laboratories. The investor's eyes turned to me, newly suspicious. Warren pressed his advantage. Phone records show multiple calls between Dr. Wells and Vitaris's research director over the past month. Curious timing, wouldn't you say? I felt the ground shifting beneath me. The sister I'd mentioned in my resignation letter, the one battling a rare autoimmune condition, had recently enrolled in a Vitaris clinical trial. Those calls were personal, not professional, but how could I prove that? Warren's trap had been laid perfectly. In one masterful stroke, he'd transformed me from whistleblower to corporate spy. Is this true, Dr. Wells? Tessa asked, her previous warmth replaced with cool professionalism. I had seconds to respond before everything I'd built would crumble. Warren watched me with the satisfied smirk I'd come to despise, certain he'd won this battle just like all the others. But he'd forgotten one critical detail in his rush to discredit me, and that detail was about to change everything. I took a measured breath, feeling every eye in the room on me. Warren's accusation hung in the air, threatening to unravel everything. But a strange calm washed over me. "The resignation letter in HR's system isn't mine," I said quietly. Warren laughed. "Your signature says otherwise." "A signature I never wrote." I turned to Tessa. "May I borrow your tablet?" Calm with her. She slid it across the table, hesitation evident in her eyes. I pulled up the company's internal HR portal, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm logging in with my credentials now. Let's examine this supposed resignation letter together." The document appeared on screen. Indeed, there was a resignation letter with my name on it, dated this morning. My signature sat at the bottom. "An interesting forgery," I noted, keeping my voice steady. But Warren made a critical error. I reached into my bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. "This is my actual resignation letter, which I drafted but never submitted. It's still sealed with today's date written on it." Warren scoffed. "Anyone could have prepared that after the fact." "True," I acknowledged. "But there's something else." I turned back to the tablet. The metadata on this digital document shows it was created at 10:38 this morning and uploaded to HR at 10:42. Julian leaned forward. "And the significance of that timing? At precisely 10:40 this morning, I was in the break room, being forced to drink from Warren's cup while 20 witnesses watched. The company's security cameras will confirm my location. I couldn't possibly have been at my computer uploading a resignation letter." Warren's confident smile faltered. "Moreover," I continued, "the document was uploaded from Warren's executive account, not mine. The system logs are quite clear about that. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. You're suggesting I forged your resignation?" Warren's voice rose an octave. "I'm not suggesting anything. The system logs confirm it." I turned back to the investors. Warren discovered I'd been collecting evidence about his practices. Rather than address the problems, he decided to discredit me. Tessa studied the screen, then looked at Warren. "This is extremely troubling." Warren's face reddened. "This is absurd. She's manipulating you all. What about her connections to Vitaris?" "My sister Mira has been battling Lambert-Eaton syndrome for 7 years," I explained, opening a photo on my phone. "She's participating in a clinical trial at Vitaris because Helios doesn't have a treatment in development. My calls were to check on her progress. Nothing more." Julian rubbed his chin. "Warren, these allegations against Dr. Wells appear increasingly thin." Warren's expression darkened. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "This is a mistake you'll regret, Astrid." The threat sent chills down my spine, but I held his gaze. "Are you threatening me in front of witnesses?" Again, the conference room door opened, and a security guard entered. Mr. Newman asked me to escort Miss Wells from the building. Newman, the head of security who played golf with Warren every weekend. Warren smiled triumphantly. "Company protocol. Since you've resigned, you'll need to leave immediately." "But she hasn't resigned," Tessa interjected. "Company records say otherwise." Warren stood. "This meeting is over until we resolve this personnel issue." The investors exchanged uncomfortable glances. I could feel my carefully constructed case slipping away. Warren was pulling rank, using company protocols to shut down the investigation. It was exactly how he'd operated for years, creating chaos, then controlling the narrative during the confusion. Newman placed a hand on my shoulder. "Ma'am, please gather your things." Something snapped inside me. 3 months of watching Warren's abuse, of documenting harm to patients and employees, of swallowing my pride, all of it crystallized into a white-hot point of clarity. I shrugged off Newman's hand. "Remove your hand from my person immediately or face assault charges." My voice carried an authority that made him step back. "Everyone stay seated," I commanded, standing to my full height. "Warren wants to end this meeting because he knows what comes next." I connected my laptop to the room's display system. The calls to Vitaris weren't my only communication. 2 days ago, I spoke with the FDA about Helios's testing protocols. Warren froze. "You did what?" After discovering that safety data was being altered, I had a legal obligation to report it. I pulled up a series of internal emails. These communications show Warren instructing lab technicians to clean up unfavorable results before submitting them for regulatory review. The emails appeared on the large screen, damning in their clarity. "That's taken out of context," Warren sputtered. "The technicians who received these instructions have provided sworn statements," I continued. 3 of them independently confirmed they were directed to alter data that showed liver toxicity in animal subjects. Tessa leaned forward. Are you saying the company submitted falsified data to regulators? Yes. And there's more. I changed to a new screen. The protein degradation issue I mentioned earlier, it's not just about shelf stability. After 60 days, the compound breaks down into potentially toxic metabolites. Warren was aware of this, but concealed it from both the board and regulators. Julian's face had gone pale. If this is true, it's criminal. It's slander is what it is, Warren snapped, but the confidence had drained from his voice. I pulled up one final document. This morning, the FDA opened a formal investigation based on the evidence I provided. Their investigators will arrive tomorrow. The room erupted. Investors turned to each other in panicked whispers. Newman backed toward the door. Warren lunged across the table, his face contorted with rage. You treacherous little. You treacherous little. Tessa shot to her feet. Warren, control yourself. He froze, seeming to remember where he was. His breathing came heavy and fast. Newman, he barked. Remove her now. The security head hesitated, looking between Warren and the investors. Actually, Julian said, I believe Dr. Wells should stay. Newman, please wait outside. After the security head left, Julian turned to Warren. Is what she's saying true? Did you falsify safety data? Of course not. She's twisting normal quality control procedures into something sinister. Then you won't mind if we examine the original lab data, I suggested. Warren's eyes narrowed. Those records are confidential. To protect proprietary formulations, yes, I agreed, but the board and investors have clearance to view them. I turned to Tessa. Unless there's something he doesn't want you to see. The tension in the room was suffocating. Warren's hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. This ends now, he said, pulling out his phone. I'm calling the CEO. Go ahead, I replied. Though you should know he received the same evidence packet the FDA did. Warren's finger hovered over his phone. For the first time, uncertainty crept into his expression. I pressed my advantage. The board hired me to evaluate your division because complaints had already raised red flags. I was their failsafe, Warren. Their way of verifying whether the concerns had merit before taking action. You're bluffing, he whispered. I smiled. Call the CEO. See what happens. Something broke in Warren then. A recognition that the walls were closing in. His shoulders slumped slightly. Let's all take a breath, he said, voice suddenly reasonable. Clearly there have been miscommunications. Perhaps Dr. Wells misinterpreted certain protocols. We can clarify everything with the full data. It was the pivot I'd expected. From aggression to damage control. Warren was nothing if not adaptable. I think that's wise, Tessa agreed. We should review everything together. Warren nodded, a hint of relief crossing his features. Exactly. Full transparency. Though I suggest we adjourn for today and reconvene tomorrow when everyone's had time to collect the necessary information. He was buying time. Time to scrub records, coach witnesses, construct a defense. I'd seen it before. The data is already collected, I said. And given the pattern of intimidation we've witnessed today, I'm concerned about evidence preservation if we delay. Julian nodded grimly. Dr. Wells makes a valid point. Warren, we'll need your devices secured immediately. Warren's face darkened again. This is outrageous. I'm not surrendering my devices based on unsubstantiated accusations. Tessa's phone chimed. She glanced at it, then looked up with new resolve. That was the CEO. He's requested this meeting continue with IT present to secure all relevant data. Warren paled. He can't do that without cause. Falsifying FDA submissions is more than sufficient cause, Julian stated. Warren looked around the room, suddenly cornered. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Lower, more dangerous. You have no idea what you're doing, Astrid. No idea who you're dealing with. I held his gaze. Actually, I do. That's why I came prepared. Warren pushed back from the table. This meeting is over. I'm calling my attorney. Before you go, I said, there's one more thing you should know. He paused at the door, eyes narrowed. The cup you made me drink from this morning, I said. I kept a sample of its contents. The lab results came back 30 minutes ago. So, he challenged. So the protein supplement you use contains undeclared stimulants not approved for human consumption. Stimulants you specifically told the FDA weren't in your personal formulation when they questioned you last year. Warren's hand froze on the door handle. Your personal enhanced protein blend that you've been promoting to athletes, the one you're planning to license to sports nutrition companies next month, it contains substances banned in professional sports. For the first time, real fear flashed in Warren's eyes. You've built your reputation on clean supplements, I continued. Imagine the headlines when this gets out. Warren stepped back into the room, pulling the door closed behind him. What do you want? He asked, voice barely audible. It was the question I'd been waiting for. The moment everything changed, because despite all the evidence I'd gathered about Helios's business practices, Warren's greatest vulnerability had nothing to do with the company at all. It was personal, and he had just realized I knew his deepest secret. The room stilled completely. Even the investors seemed to hold their breath. What do I want? I repeated softly. Interesting question from someone who's spent years taking what he wants without asking. Warren's composure had fractured, revealing glimpses of panic beneath. He'd expected to control this meeting, to dismiss me as a disgruntled employee. Now he stood cornered, desperately calculating his options. Let's talk privately, he suggested, voice artificially smooth. I think we can resolve this misunderstanding. Tessa shook her head. Any discussion happens here, with witnesses. Warren shot her an irritated glance before refocusing on me. Name your terms, Astrid. I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. It's Dr. Wells, actually, and my terms are simple. The truth. About what? Everything. Starting with how you built your career. The color drained from his face as understanding dawned. This went beyond falsified lab results, beyond corporate misconduct. This was personal. That's not relevant to this meeting, he stammered. I disagree. I opened another file on my laptop. 3 years ago, when I joined Helios, I was curious why the company would hire someone with my expertise, but position me so far below my qualifications. It seemed strange. Warren's jaw tightened. Then I discovered something fascinating. My dissertation on protein stability in therapeutic applications had been heavily cited in Helios's founding patents. Patents you were credited for, Warren. Julian leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. I displayed a split screen showing 2 nearly identical sections of text, one from my published research, another from Warren's patent application. Warren built his scientific reputation by repackaging others' research as his own. That's absurd, Warren sputtered. Scientific advancement always builds on previous work. Quoting without attribution isn't building on previous work. It's plagiarism. I turned to the investors. Warren didn't just take my research. He's done this repeatedly, claiming credit for breakthroughs he had no part in developing. Warren's breathing had become shallow. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. I pulled up another document. This analysis compares Warren's published papers against original research from various scientists. The pattern is unmistakable. The investors studied the screen, expressions darkening. So he's unoriginal, Tessa said slowly. Concerning, but it goes beyond academic dishonesty, I continued. Warren used stolen research to position himself as an innovative leader. He leveraged that reputation to raise capital and build influence. The entire foundation of his career is fabricated. Warren slammed his hand on the table. Enough. This witch hunt ends now. His outburst hung awkwardly in the silence that followed. Julian cleared his throat. Warren, these are serious allegations that merit investigation. Investigation? Warren laughed bitterly. Based on what? Her word against mine? I've delivered results for this company for 7 years. What has she done besides stir up trouble? I smiled thinly. I've been waiting for you to ask that question. 1, I wed it as a little. I didn't a 5 to becoming undecideder. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, then pressed play on a voice recording. Warren's voice filled the room. Listen carefully, because I won't repeat myself. The Phase 2 results stay exactly as I've presented them. If the raw data doesn't match, then the raw data needs adjustment. Make it happen by Friday, or clear out your desk. Another voice responded. But sir, changing test results would be what? Career suicide? Yes, it would be. For you, not me. Remember who signs your performance reviews. I stopped the recording. The room remained deathly quiet. That was your conversation with Dr. Yoon 3 months ago. He resigned the following week. I looked directly at Warren. He wasn't the first scientist you threatened, just the first who recorded it. Warren's confidence had evaporated completely. He looked around the room like a cornered animal. This is illegal. Recording without consent. California is a two-party consent state, I acknowledged, except when there's reasonable belief that evidence of criminal activity is being captured. Falsifying medical research data crosses that threshold. Tessa turned to Warren, her expression cold. Did you instruct employees to alter test results? Warren's silence was damning. We need to contact legal immediately, Julian said, reaching for his phone. Warren's eyes darted toward the door. This meeting is adjourned until I've consulted with counsel. You're not leaving, Tessa stated firmly. Security has been instructed to keep you on premises until this is resolved. For a moment, I thought Warren might bolt anyway. Instead, he sank back into his chair, defeated. What happens now? He asked hollowly. Tessa exchanged glances with the other investors. The board will convene an emergency session. In the meantime, you're suspended pending investigation. Suspended? Warren looked stunned. Over unsubstantiated accusations from a highly credentialed scientist with supporting evidence, Julian interrupted. We take these matters seriously, Warren. Warren's gaze locked onto me, hatred burning in his eyes. You've orchestrated this from the beginning. Why? What did I ever do to deserve this? The question hung in the air, so breathtakingly oblivious that I almost laughed. What did you do? I repeated softly. You bullied researchers into falsifying safety data, endangering patients. You stole others' work and claimed it as your own. You created a toxic culture where employees were afraid to raise concerns. I leaned forward. And this morning, you publicly humiliated me for daring to question your methods. You made me drink from your cup while colleagues watched, threatening my livelihood if I refused. Warren waved dismissively. That was just workplace discipline. No, Warren, that was abuse of power. The kind you've gotten away with for years because everyone was too afraid to challenge you. Tessa's phone chimed again. She read the message, then looked up grimly. The CEO has requested Warren's company devices be confiscated immediately. IT is on their way. She turned to Warren. This is now a formal investigation. Warren's face had gone ash gray. You can't do this. I built this division. I brought in the investors. Actually, Julian said, your research brought us in. Research that apparently wasn't yours to begin with. The door opened and two IT technicians entered, followed by Newman. Their expressions were solemn as they approached Warren. Sir, we need your laptop and phone, one technician said. Warren clutched his devices like lifelines. This is insane. I haven't had time to what? Tessa asked sharply. To delete incriminating material? Warren fell silent, finally surrendering his electronics. As they were bagged and labeled, the full weight of his situation seemed to hit him. What about my career? He asked quietly. Everything I've built? No one answered. No one needed to. The meeting adjourned shortly after. Warren was escorted to a conference room to await further instructions. The investors huddled with legal counsel, and I sat alone, watching my 3-month undercover operation culminate exactly as planned. Tessa approached me as I gathered my things. You knew all along, didn't you? About the research theft? I nodded. I suspected when I saw my work in company materials. The board confirmed it when they recruited me. Why not confront him immediately? Warren was powerful, connected. Exposing him without irrefutable evidence would have backfired. Tessa studied me. The cup incident this morning. Did you provoke him deliberately? I smiled faintly. I simply asked questions I knew he couldn't answer. His reaction was entirely his own. And you saved the liquid. I'm a scientist. We collect data. Tessa shook her head, impressed despite herself. What happens to you now? I returned to my research. My sabbatical ends next week. Sabbatical? Tessa looked confused. I never actually worked for Helios. The board arranged a temporary position while I maintained my university lab. They needed someone with both scientific credentials and no financial ties to the company. Understanding dawned on her face. The perfect independent evaluator. Exactly. As I walked out of Helios for the last time, I felt strangely hollow. There was no triumph, no satisfaction in watching Warren's downfall. Only relief that patients would be safer without him cutting corners. 3 days later, the news broke. Warren resigned amid allegations of research misconduct and data falsification. The FDA expanded its investigation. Helios's stock tumbled, then stabilized after the board appointed a respected researcher as the new VP. I watched it unfold from my university office, where a package awaited me. Inside was a company mug with a note from Tessa. Your cup, Dr. Wells, no one else's. I smiled, placing it on my desk, beside a framed photo of my sister. Mira's condition had stabilized under the Vitaris treatment, the very treatment Warren had dismissed as scientifically unsound when I'd suggested researching similar approaches. My phone rang. Julian, calling with a job offer. Helios needs rebuilding, he said. We need someone with both integrity and brilliance. I'm happy at the university, I replied. Consider consulting then. Help us fix what Warren broke. I promised to think about it. That evening, as I worked late in my lab, a notification popped up on my computer. Warren had updated his professional profile, listing himself as an independent scientific consultant. I clicked through to his website. There, prominently displayed, was a list of his scientific contributions, now carefully reworded to avoid direct plagiarism claims. At the bottom of the page was a contact form with the tagline, "Bringing scientific integrity to challenging problems." I laughed out loud in my empty lab. Then I took a screenshot and sent it to Julian with one line. I'll take that consulting position. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about rebuilding what corrupt people tried to destroy. Warren took shortcuts, stole credit, and abused power. But he couldn't steal the actual knowledge, the years of study, the commitment to scientific truth. I didn't destroy Warren. He destroyed himself with his own choices. I simply made those choices visible. And if he ever decides to return to pharmaceutical research, he'll find my name on the peer review boards of every major journal. He'll find my former students leading research teams at competing companies. He'll find that science is a community built on truth, and that community has a long memory. The greatest revenge wasn't getting Warren fired. It was returning to a system where merit matters more than manipulation. Would you believe this kind of workplace drama happens every day in high-stakes industries? If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of corporate justice. Have you ever witnessed a workplace bully get their comeuppance? Share your experience in the comments below. And if you enjoyed Astrid's methodical takedown, check out my other videos about standing up to workplace toxicity. Remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply doing your job exceptionally well and making sure the right people notice.